Good morning.
Good morning.
We're in Daf. Today's Daf is Daf Samachay. The last line of Daf Samach Daled Amud Beis. Amar Rav Sheshes Mishum Rabbi Tzvi ben Azariah. Rav Sheshes said in the name of Rabbi Tzvi ben Azariah, Yochel ani lifter es kololam kuloi min adin. I can exempt all of the world from judgment on account of the halachas that we were seeing before about not being able to daven when somebody is drunk, not being able to be a judge when someone is drunk. So from the time of the destruction of Beis HaMikdash until today, Shene'emar, for it says, Lachein, therefore, Shimuna Zeis Aniya. Listen to this. Aniya, you poor one. What is the poor one? Meshikores v'lo miyayin. The one who is drunk, but not from wine, drunk from sorrow, drunk from the difficulties of life. With the destruction of Beis HaMikdash came a spiritual drunkenness, a spiritual dulling of the senses, and this spiritual dulling of the senses, Rabbi Tzvi ben Azariah says, is an ability to exempt people for the mistakes they make. Amara says, wait, a general exemption for everything someone does? Meiseve shikar mekach. Somebody who's drunk, we'll see later there's an exception if he's so drunk that has absolutely no ability to know anything. That's called shikar of Noach, the drunkenness of Noach. But someone who has had a drink or two or 10, a sale he makes is a valid sale. Memkar. His acquisitions and his sales are sales. If he transgressed a capital crime, he gets capital punishment. Malkut. I say, corporal crime, corporal punishment. Kollel shadavar. This is the rule. If he did a crime, he's like a pikeach, someone who knows what he's doing. However, he's exempt of tefillah. So that's what we saw. The davening, which requires a certain focus and intent of mind, for that he'd be exempt, but not exempt of everything, not exempt of everything. And so, how can you exempt people from every crime or every avera that they've done? From the day the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, on account of that the pasuk says they are like drunkards without, but not from wine, but the dulling of the senses from the loss of the Beis HaMikdash. But that's not the halacha. You're not really exempt from everything. So Gemara says, "Ma'yacholnu liftor." What did Rabbi Tzvi ben Azariah mean that I could exempt people? The Ka'amar is that he said, "Nami midin tefillah." That too, what he's talking about is really only of davening, and that sometimes we daven and we don't have intent and we don't have the sense of connection to Hashem. That lack of connection is on account of the spiritual dullness that came with the loss of the Beis HaMikdash, this drunkenness, and that is an exemption. We'll see more about that soon. Amar Rabbi Chanina, this halacha that we said, that someone who's drunk is accountable for their actions, their sales are sales, their acquisitions are acquisitions, etc. That's only if they didn't reach the level of Lot's drunkenness. But if he's so drunk, like Lot was, and didn't even know what happened to him, that would exempt him. I know what the common law today is. If somebody is drunk and they make a sale, assume the sale is a good sale. I don't know where the line would be in the common law. I don't know if Rick can chime in. Amar Rab Chanina. Rab Chanina said, "Kol hamapik magin b'sha'as gava, sorge v'chos mitzoros ba'adam." This is a cryptic statement. Literally, it means one who expresses protection, shield, at the time of haughtiness. So this is based on the pasuk in Eov. The pasuk in Eov says, "Ga'ava afike maginim, segor chosam tzar," which is literally the haughtiness of bringing out protectors. Is a seal that closes out an oppressor. What is the drash that the Chanina is saying, according to Rashi, Tosfos has another drash according to Rabbi Hanan, but according to Rashi, it means that somebody who expresses magin, the bracha of Amida, magin Avram, that means he can focus and somebody chooses not to daven on account of he realizes that he's drunk and can't daven, he cannot focus, and therefore he doesn't say magin. He's mapik magin. He takes out, removes the prayer and the tefillah of magin Avram. When he is ga'ava, when he is haughty, meaning when he is drunk and cannot be humble before Hashem, and so he doesn't daven. So on account of that self-restraint, that he knows himself and realizes that he's incapacitated and doesn't daven, that would be a protection against tsaros, against oppressors or problems that they shouldn't come to him. Me'ei mashma the high apik lishna de evuri. And how do you know that the word apik over here means to pass over, to decide not to do something, to exclude? The Sefer it says, and this is also over there this is also in Eov. Achai, my brothers bagadu kumo and nachal, they like a river, like a stream. Ka'apik nachalim ya'avoru, like they pass over like rivers are passed over. That's the way he reads this. So apik over there means excluding. However, Rabbi Yochanan says no. It's the wording is the other way around. Rabbi Yochanan koshe eino mapik, somebody who koshe eino mapik itmar, somebody who does not mapik, does not exclude or really take out. And what does take out mean? To express. And anybody that does not express tefillah, meaning also he decides not to daven on account of his being drunk. So he doesn't express his davening. When he's drunk, will be saved. So either way, they're agreeing that it means somebody should not daven when they're drunk, and if they don't daven when they're drunk, they will have protection from Hashem. And where do you see that the word mapik, which is the drash in this verse, means a geluye, uncovering? The Sefer says vayiru apike mayim begolamos is tevel, and that vayiru apike mayim, they saw the coming forth, the like the geysers, the flowing forth of water, vayigolamos is tevel, and all of the support of the nothingness, meaning the earth, became uncovered. So this is the removal of the water in order to show the earth, which is from this week's parsha in creation. And so in Tehillim, we have this pasuk we see afike means afike mayim is the expression, the pushing out of the water. So mechti, right?
I think is the sides of the channel of where the water goes, the sides of the stream or
not in this drash. The drash over here is saying that apik means over here to remove.
Yeah, afike mind though. I'm saying
Afike mayim.
are the
channel. The removal of the waters pushing aside, were seen.
Yeah. So what I wanted to ask is though, but I mean, I would think that a person has an obligation to test himself. I mean, how do I know I'm like a shikor kalod? How do I know how shikor I am? Does a person have an obligation to like try it and say like, yeah, no, I don't think I can do this, but at least to see. I mean, because maybe you're not that drunk. Maybe you could have, the minimum amount of kavanah necessary. Not like we got so much kavanah anyway when we're sober, but I'm just saying, I would think that a person, it's not like just assume that I'm parted from tefillah.
I'm not sure what the question is.
Question is, I would think that you would have to test it, or you would have to try at least.
How are you going to test it?
I don't know. Try to start the daven, and you can't do it.
The judge is drunk. How are you going to test it? Can I do it? Who's deciding? If you're drunk, you may not know whether you're drunk.
Isn't it nice?
You may have heard this once before, but sometimes drunk people say, "I'm not drunk."
Absolutely. But I mean,
so who's going to judge?
Is it machmas oines that he can't daven? He wants to daven, he just can't. He's drunk. But how do I know that I'm anus if I don't try?
I don't know if this is honest. This is under like duress. It's not respectful. You're better off not davening. As I'm saying, you're better off holding back and not davening than davening and it be disrespectful. That's what I'm saying. So the Gemara says, Mechti, kroi mashma bein lamar bein lamar. Either way, the verse means you're better off not davening. Hold back and don't daven, or uncover, meaning push it aside and don't daven. Either way, it means don't daven when you're drunk. So what's the distinction between the two interpretations? My benai, ikar benai, the Rav Sheshes. The distinction would be the story with Rav Sheshes. The Rav Sheshes, once Rav Sheshes had too much to drink. Masar shinsei l'shame. So he said, I'm going to lay down, but when it comes time to daven, wake me up. Mar isli de Rav Sheshes. So one agrees to Rav Sheshes and says, indeed, that you need to wake up. In other words, don't uncover. So Rabbi Yochanan says, yeah, wake the person up. It just don't show yourself to daven while you're drunk, but you did something to cover up the drink by sleeping. So that's enough. You can have someone wake you. However, Rabbi Hanina, who says that you remove yourself, so now the removing of self, that would you have to pass over it. So according to him, don't wake up. Not don't wake up, but don't have someone wake you. The person who had too much to drink should not daven until they woke up on their own. They slept so much that their alcohol has been diffused. And the other says, no, you have to wait until you naturally wake up and not have someone wake you. Amar Avchia Barashi, Amar Rav, in the name of Rav. Kol she'ein datim yosheves alav. Not only someone who is drunk, but even someone who just can't focus because his mind is not settled. Al yispal should not daven. Mishum shanemar batzar al youre. As it says in a verse, it's not a verse in Tanakh, but it's in Ben Sira. We've talked about the writings of Ben Sira in Alexandria. He was one of the Jewish Chachamim, but his books were not in the book of Ben Sira, which was written in the style of Tanakh, is not one of the books of the Tanakh. The Gemara sometimes quotes him, and so it says, as Ben Sira wrote, "Betzar al youre." When you're under duress, when you're under under pressure, don't teach, don't daven, don't rule. Rabbi Chanina, on a day that he had an anger, he wouldn't daven. Omar Batzar al Yeri, he said in this verse in Ben Sira says that you can't without focus, you can't teach when you're under duress, and that's what this is, under pressure. Mar Ukva b'yom deshusa le'av enafik lebedin. Mar Ukva would not go to be a judge on a day that was stormy. It was strong winds. It was unsettling. He wouldn't go to the court. You can't focus. Le'av enafik lebedin. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak Hilchasa. Rav Nachman Yitzchak said the halacha is ba'itzilusa k'yom d'estena. It requires clarity, like a clear, calm day, a clear blue sky, calm winds. That's what is required for din. Amar Abayi, Amar li aim, koriv kutcha. If my mother asked me past the dips, past kutach, so now I'm focused on my mother, lo tanoi. So I wouldn't be able to learn because I couldn't focus on my learning at that point on account of my obligations to my mother. Amar Ravina said, Ikaratstan kina, if I had lice that were biting me, Litanai, I wouldn't learn because I couldn't focus on the learning properly. Ma'abarei de Ravina avdali ime zayin mani or zayin glimi zayin yemi. His mother of Ma'abarei de Ravina made him 7 garments for the 7 days of the week, so that this way he can change every day and have clean clothes, so she wouldn't be bothered by his clothing and by lice, etc., and be able to focus on his learning. So we have din to be a judge. You need clarity. To daven, you need clarity of mind. Now, for learning, you need clarity of mind. Rav Yehuda says the nights were created so that you can sleep. That will give clarity to mind. Somebody has to take the opportunity of nights in order to get clarity of the mind. And as the Gemara is going to show, and Rashi points out, this is the nights of the summer, where they're short nights, so you have to take the entirety of the night to sleep. Whereas the Gemara Bracha said, and we saw that in the long winter nights, there's enough time, and therefore somebody should make sure that they learn at night. As we know that a home must have Torah in it at night and in the morning, during the day and during the nighttime. So you'd have to learn and use the time for nights for sleeping. The moon was created for learning. And again, this is the idea that in a winter's night, there's enough time to learn by the moonlight, and one must take the time to refresh themselves so they have a clarity of mind, but also the calmness of the day having been passed and the things are settled, and gives you time to learn at moonlight. People said to Rabbi Zera, your teachings, your halacha that you're learning are very clear. Amalahu the yeah, I study them by day after having slept well at night, so I can have a clarity of mind. Amarle Barati de Rav Chisda Rav Chisda, the wife of Rav Chisda, or some say the daughter of Rav Chisda, which is Rava's wife. To Rav Chisda, they said to Rav Chisda, Lebayimar Meinim Purta, don't you need to sleep a bit? Amar La, he said to her, Hashta Asayim Darichi. The day is going to come when I'm going to have a long nap. Vakatini, and there's only a short days to deal with mitzvahs. You want me to sleep a lot during the few days that I have on this earth to do mitzvahs? Amar Nachman Yitzchak, Anam Paile de Mamanan. Nachman Yitzchak said, look, we are a hired hands of the day hours. It means we have to have the strength and clarity to be available to work by day, which means that you have to sleep and you have to be able to work properly. Rav Yaakov Yosef Upara. Rav Yaakov would set times for learning, and he would borrow and pay back if he couldn't learn on account of that he had chores to do, business to do. He didn't sleep and he needed sleep, so he would borrow for one day and pay back on the other, and say, okay, today I didn't learn the X amount of hours that I really needed to learn, and so the next day I'm going to make up for it. Or he would learn by day and make it up at night for the time he missed by day. Somebody came from a long travel, should not daven for 3 days because it takes 3 days to settle. Shenema, as it says, when Ezra brought Am Yisrael back, or part of Am Yisrael back from Bavel, by the building of the second Beis Hamikdash, Ekbetzeim El Naharabah, and I gathered the group of people that I brought together to the river that comes El Ahava, to this place Ahava, Menachem Hashem, and we camped there. Yamim Shlosha, 3 days. Va'avina ba'am, and then I was able to understand in the community, in the group of the nation that we brought back, who was there, and he realized that there were no Levim that came along. So we see that it took 3 days to settle his mind so that he can see who was or wasn't in the community. And indeed, the father of Shmuel, when he traveled a long distance, he wouldn't daven for 3 days. Shmuel would have davened in a house that had fermenting beer, because it would distract his focus or make him drunk. Rav Papa would not daven in a house that had fish brine. It distracted him. So all these halachas are the halachas of requiring proper intent, and if somebody can't do it, if they're drunk or they're busy with distracted with work, distracted with obligations, a stormy day, they've been angry that they, whatever it may be, you can't daven. However, the halacha is that that's true for someone that would actually help for. If somebody has full intent, is completely aware that they're standing before Hashem every moment of tefillah and understands every word and has a total focus and connection with Hashem, so then the davening is going to be distracted by the fact that they just came from a journey 2 days ago, and so they're not settled and can't have the full focus they normally have. So that's a reason to withhold davening. However, as the Shulchan Aruch says already 400 or 500 years ago, that it's very hard to claim nowadays that we have that kind of focus. Most of the time we do not, or perhaps we never do. So the halacha is that we don't hold back davening for any of these reasons, on account of that we're normally not that focused. So a stormy day, distraction from work, etc., is not going to necessarily diminish the kavana, the intent we have.
Having said that, I mean, it is true. If you come to a town, you're not familiar there, you don't know anybody there, you go into a shul, you've never been in the shul, it's distracting. It's disorienting. I mean, not that I have such great storehouses of kavanah anyway, but I mean, I find that
it is distracting. Many things are distracting. And you just got off a difficult phone call with someone, that's distracting. You were involved in thinking through a process, a legal matter, a business matter, whatever it may be. Those are distracting. Many things are distracting, but we're distracted. We're distracted people. It's hard for us to focus. It's hard for us to have a deep spiritual connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so we daven anyhow, and we do the best we can under the circumstances. Amar Rabbi Chanina, kol mispate b'yeina yesh b'midas kuna. Somebody who, even when they're drunk, can maintain a calmness and a goodness and can be appeased, has some of his creator in it. Shenema, for it says, "Vayarach Hashem asreach anichach," as it says that Hashem scented the spirit of the people. So too, and the wine or alcohol is a certain scent that we have, and to be able to still maintain your intent and compassion, that's a certain attribute of Hashem. Anybody that can focus, even though they had wine, is like the intent of the 70 elders. Because yayin, nitim ba'ayin oisius, in the numerical value is going to be 70. 2 tens for the 2 yuds, and nun is 50. The sod, nitim ba'ayin, and the secret, the hidden depth is also 70. Samach is 60, Vav is 6, and Dalet is 4. So nichnas yayin, when yayin goes in, yatzah sod, generally we say that the secrets come out, and if this person can contain themselves and maintain their proper intent, that is like the mind of the 70 elders. The creation of alcohol, of wine, was there for the purpose of consoling the mourner. From here we have the custom that at the first meal given to mourners, we give them a roll and an egg, as well as a cup of wine. And it also is to give to give reward to those that do evil in this world. Shenema, it says, give shechar, give wine to oved, to somebody who has a loss, or to somebody who has lost themselves. Anybody doesn't have wine pouring in their house like water, is not in the space included in this concept of bracha, of blessing. For it says, and Hashem will bless your bread and your water. Blessing the bread makes sense because bread has to ferment, it has to grow. You have to be able to make something out of something else, and there's a blessing there in it. But water is. What does it mean, bless your water? So, just as the bread is something that is a food that you can purchase with the tithe, so too, because we know that the tithe that you take, you have to transfer it onto coins and bring it to your shalayim and buy food with it. So you can buy bread with it and you can buy wine with it. So water over here means wine. And yet it calls it water. So why does it call it water? To tell you this idea that and we turn to Samach Hamad base 65b. If wine is flowing in his house like water, so that's an inclusion in bracha. And if not, that's not bracha. And from here we have the custom that at Havdalah, the beginning of the week, bringing bracha into the week, that when we fill the cup of wine for Havdalah, that we have it overflow to bring bracha into the house. Amar Rabbi Lai. Rabbi Lai says, "B'shlosh dvarim adam nikar." It is through three things that a person can be. We can tell a person's personality. We can see whether he can contain himself and hold himself respectful or not. Because so when he is drunk, uvakiso, and when it comes to money, when he deals with people, is he trustworthy? Is he honest? And does he have faith in Hashem? Uvakaso, and when he's angry, can he contain himself, or at least be forgiving and not be too strict with people, too uptight with people. And as some say, also when he's laughing, when he's very happy, does he lose himself? That's the end of the Agadata here, and we're going to get back now to the Mishnah and Eruvin. The halacha was, if you had two Jews in a courtyard together with a non-Jew, so then the non-Jew's land must be leased in order for them to make an eruv for Shabbos. But if it's one and one, you don't. And the Gemara is going to ask, what happens if you have them in a courtyard in a flag lot? So you have one lot behind the other. The one that's behind has a right to walk through the front yard, but the one who's in the front has no right to go to the back. So it's going to depend on where the non-Jew is. So you have two Jews, one in a front lot, one in a back lot, and with one of them, there's also an Ein Yehudi and non-Jew. Rav Yehuda Marav, Yisrael v'Nachri b'Pnimis. A Jew and a non-Jew live in the inner, meaning in the flag lot, the house that's behind, and the one in front has no right to go in there. The Yisrael b'Chitzona, in the outer lot that's out at the street, is where an individual Jew lives. So now you have the two of them have a right to walk through the inner space. The outer space, but the outer person has no right to go to the inner space. So, ba myself ne Rebbe va'asar. Rebbe said that the one in the outer space must lease the land of the non-Jew, even though he doesn't have a right to go in there in any case. But since the non-Jew and the Jew that are in the flag lot have a right to walk through his property, so now they're sharing in a space, and he has to lease from them. He has to lease the non-Jews space. So a similar question, this question was also asked in front of Rabbi Chia. He too forbade the outer one from making an eruv unless he leased that land. Yosef Rabbi Rav Yosef Bashili Pirka, the Rav Sheshes. Rabbi Rav Yosef was sitting at the end of the teaching of Rav Sheshes of the academy of Rav Sheshes. Yosef Rav Sheshes come up. Rav Sheshes was teaching and said, "Come on, Amar Rav Lashmaita." According to whose opinion did Rav say this idea? We saw in the Mishnah Machlokas. Rabbi Meir holds that even if there's just one Jew and one non-Jew, then you have to lease the land. According to Rabbi Eliezer Yaakov, you need two Jews and one non-Jew to lease the land. So whose opinion is this halacha like? So, Rabbi Meir. He said it's like Rabbi Meir because Rabbi Meir says even one is enough. And so since he's alone in this property, but since a non-Jew can walk by, that's one and one. Kikash Rabba Vereshe. Rabba also shook his head and said, indeed, that must be like Rabbi Meir. Amar Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef challenged and said, Trei Gavri Ravri Karabana. Two great teachers, two great chachamim like you. Litu B'Hai Milsa, I'm making a mistake about this. Can't be. Because that it's Rabbi Meir. Ik Rabbi Meir, if it's like Rabbi Meir, Lamali Yisrael B'Chitzonu. Who cares whether it's a Jew in the outer flag lot or not? Either way, the one Jew that's in the inner lot would have to lease the land. So from the non-Jew on account of that, it's a Jew and a non-Jew living together. And if you tell me, no, that just happens to be the story that happened, and they asked the story that way because that was the scenario, But in truth, even if there was no Jew in the outer courtyard, the halacha would be the same. But and the question was asked of Rav, what about the person in the inner flag lot in his own place? Can he carry from his household to the courtyard or back? And he said it's permissible. Only the fellow in the outer courtyard has to lease the land from the non-Jew. But the fellow in the inner courtyard, it's just one Jew and one non-Jew. So we see that this is according to Rabbi Tzvi Yaakov. And indeed, that the fellow, the Jew in the inner courtyard, since the Jew in the outer courtyard has no right to come in, so he's living alone with a non-Jew. He doesn't have to lease the land from him. He can just carry from his courtyard to his house and back. However, it's only on account of that you have a Jew in the outer courtyard and you have another Jew and a non-Jew that have rights to walk by, so it's as if they have rights in that courtyard, and therefore he needs to lease the land from the non-Jew. So if it's according to Rabbi Tzvi Yaakov, but he says that you need two Jews living in the courtyard to prohibit each other, and over here they don't prohibit each other. And this is something we mentioned earlier, and we'll see in about 10 days. The Gemara about regel hamuteres b'mekoma eina ser shala b'mekoma. A question, a machlokas between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. If I'm allowed to make an eruv in my place, but I have rights to walk through your place, does my walking through your place prohibit your eruv? On account of, after all, I have a rights where I am. Since I have a right where I am, I can maintain my space where I am, and I have a right to use the eruv where I am. So therefore, I don't. My walking through you, or my right to walk through your space, won't prohibit it. It prohibits you. Or do we say no? Since I have a right to walk through, I can prohibit. So too over here, since according to Chachamim, the inner courtyard does not prohibit the outer courtyard from making an eruv, so the outer courtyard should not have to lease the inhabitants of the inner courtyard's space. So must be this is according to Rabbi Akiva, who says that the people in the inner courtyard do prohibit the outer courtyard from making an eruv on account of their rights to walk through, and therefore it's like you have two Yisraelim, two Jews living in the outer courtyard, because the inner courtyard Jew has a right to walk by, and it's a non-Jew as well living in the outer courtyard, because the inner courtyard non-Jew has a right to walk through. So Lamali Nachri. So then why do I even need the fact that there's a non-Jew there? Afili Yisrael Nami. Just the fact that there's a Jew in the inner courtyard and a Jew in the outer courtyard, and the Jew in the inner courtyard didn't join in an eruv with the outer courtyard, that's sufficient to nullify the outer courtyard's eruv, because there's another Jew living there who hasn't participated. So you're right. This is according to Rabbi Tzvi Yaakov, who says you need two Jews and one non-Jew. And it's according to Rabbi Akiva that says that the outer courtyard is prohibited. It becomes prohibited in an eruv if the inner courtyard's people did not join in, and because they have a right to walk by. And the two Jews made an eruv together. They made an eruv together by joining, and they put in breads together. And then the halacha is, it's not sufficient to just join a bread and join the eruv with a meal. He also has to participate in, the non-Jew also has to be participating by leasing his land from him for Shabbos. Time of day cannot be usher, and therefore, on account of that, there's a non-Jew there. It'll prohibit the outer courtyard from making an eruv together with the Jew of the inner courtyard, because there's a non-Jew there, and you have to lease his land. But if there is no non-Jew there, then it would not prohibit. Rabbi Elazar asked Rav, what about the other way around? You have a Jew and a non-Jew living in the outer courtyard, the one closer to the street. And in the flag lot, in the lot behind behind that, there's a Jew living alone. Mahu. So what's the halacha over there? Sometime in Mishum the Shchiach the Dair, the Mirtas Nachr. So we said one of the concerns of a Jew and a non-Jew living together in a courtyard is on account of that their life's in danger. It was dangerous. The Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, they would kill the Jew, and so it was a dangerous place. And so there was a concern of living in that way, and so he wouldn't live there for so long. And so we saw earlier, on account of that, it was an uncommon practice, and the Chachamim didn't enact a prohibition of Eruv on such a case because it was not so common. So since it is common that the Jew would be there, the non-Jew would always be afraid that the Jew living in the inner courtyard is always going to come by. Maybe the Jew is going to come. So and he's going to come and he's going to say, "Hey, you non-Jew living in the inner courtyard, where's the other Jew that was living in the courtyard?" He's going to come and check on him, and therefore he's afraid that and he won't kill him. And so therefore he may live there, and there's a concern that there may be a Jew living in a flag lot together with a non-Jew, and that's why there's a need to enact a Eruv restriction of leasing the land. Aval hacha, but over here, amina lei nafik azale. But over here, if the Jew from the inner courtyard comes to the outer courtyard and says, "Hey, where's my neighbor, the fellow Jew that was living with you?" He'll just say, "I don't know, he went off for the day," because he doesn't have to go through the flag lot in order to get out, so he wouldn't know. Or over here too, he's afraid, and therefore the non-Jew is afraid, and therefore it is common that the Jew would live together with him. The because he's afraid maybe the Jew will come if he tries to harm his neighbor, the Jew. The flag lot Jew is going to come and notice that he's hurting him. So he said, "I'll give you some wisdom, you can take the rest." In other words, just like it's prohibited over there, because it counts as they're living together, because the Jew and the non-Jew have a right to walk from the flag lot through the front yard. So too, but in the reverse, also it's considered as if they're living together on account of that the Jew has a right to walk through the front